Hello, quiet architects. You never asked to be involved. You didn't volunteer your voice. You didn't arrive with a mission to lead, fix, manage, or redirect anyone. You were simply there, present, grounded. Moving on your own path. Your energy was clean, steady, unprovoked. You didn't enter with urgency. Didn't come armed with opinions or a need to assert relevance. You didn't announce yourself unless the moment required it. And that's exactly where the shift began. Because there's a certain kind of presence that doesn't need intention to be effective. A form of internal alignment that silently rearranges the space it enters. You weren't trying to influence anything, and yet influence found you anyway. Not because you reached for it, but because you didn't. Others arrived carrying effort, carrying agendas, carrying the hunger to be seen, heard, validated. They spoke louder, moved faster, reacted instantly, mistaking activity for direction. You moved differently. You didn't rush the moment. You didn't fear the silence. You didn't press your will onto the situation. You allowed space, and inside that space, clarity began to surface. Most people don't realize how rare that is. Most environments are shaped by whoever brings the most noise, the most urgency, the strongest emotional force. But noise doesn't stabilize anything. It distracts. Urgency doesn't solve problems. It conceals them. You understood that instinctively. Not because someone taught you, but because life already had. You've watched enough things collapse to know what actually holds them together. You've seen what happens when too many hands fight for the wheel at once. You learned that sometimes the most powerful action is choosing not to add yourself to the chaos. So you didn't. You stayed centered. You listened more than you spoke. You observed patterns instead of reacting to moments. And slowly, almost invisibly, the environment began to reorganize itself around you. Conversations softened, tension loosened. Decisions slowed just enough to become intelligent. People started pausing before speaking, adjusting their tone, matching your pace. Not because you instructed them, but because your presence established a different rhythm. That's the part they never understand. You didn't fix anything directly. You didn't step in as the solution. You became the condition that allowed solutions to emerge, while others try to dominate outcomes. You aligned with them while others try to control flow. You stabilized it, and stability is magnetic. Chaos doesn't know how to resist it. It either explodes or it settles. Here it settled. Not dramatically, not all at once, but enough to shift direction. Enough for people to notice that things suddenly felt clearer, lighter, more manageable. They couldn't explain it, so they didn't try. They just felt it. They felt how discussions made sense when you were present. How conflicts didn't spiral the way they usually did. How decisions landed instead of dragging endlessly. And what unsettled them most was that you hadn't done anything visible to earn that position, because in their world, influence is claimed, authority is asserted, importance is performed. You did none of that. You didn't compete for relevance. You didn't chase attention. You didn't even seem invested in being involved. And yet, without you, things didn't hold together the same way. You noticed it before they did. How momentum dipped when you stepped back. How clarity faded when you disengaged. How small misunderstandings expanded in your absence. You didn't personalize it. You didn't label it power. You recognized it as a pattern. Your way of being created coherence. Not because you were superior. Not because you were special. But because you were internally consistent. Your thoughts weren't fighting your emotions. Your actions were contradicting your values. You weren't performing confidence while carrying doubt underneath. You were congruent, and congruence reshapes environments. People sense it even when they can't name it. They feel safer around it. More grounded, less reactive. That's why they began orienting toward you, without realizing it, waiting for your response. Measuring decisions against your calm. Adjusting behavior to match your steadiness. You never asked for that responsibility. You never claimed it emerged naturally. Because people instinctively lean towards stability. When everything else feels uncertain, they gravitate toward current. Swans surrounded by contradiction. And without effort you became the reference point. Some try to ignore it, calling it coincidence, timing, luck, anything that allowed them to believe. Control only comes from effort. But repetition dissolves denial. When things consistently function better with you, present, and consistently unravel without you, the pattern becomes undeniable. They began to feel the contrast. How exhausting it was to force outcomes when you weren't there. How quickly things settled when you returned. How your silence carried more weight than their speeches. How your stillness organized more than their strategies. That realization wasn't comfortable, especially for those who built identity around authority, for those who equated importance with visibility. You challenged their assumptions without confrontation. You disrupted hierarchy by not needing it. You weren't trying to be essential. You simply were. That's the difference between ambition and alignment. Ambition chases position, alignment creates gravity. Ambition needs recognition. Alignment functions whether it's acknowledged or not. You didn't need validation. You weren't acting from insecurity. You didn't need permission. You weren't crossing boundaries. You didn't need applause. You weren't performing. You were present fully, honestly, without fragmentation, and real presence is rare enough that it immediately stands out. You didn't rush to speak when silence appeared. You didn't rush to act when resolution wasn't ready. You trusted clarity to rise when given space. That patience alone altered the entire dynamic. While others filled gaps with assumptions, you waited for understanding. While others reacted to surface tension, you observed the current beneath it. While others treated symptoms, you allowed causes to reveal themselves. That's why outcomes aligned around you, not around those trying the hardest. Trying too hard distorts direction. Forcing movement creates resistance. You avoided both by remaining rooted. You didn't bend to the environment. You didn't attempt to bend it to you. You let it meet you where you stood. That's alignment, subtle, dark, quiet, powerful precisely because it doesn't announce itself. By the time anyone realized what had happened, it already had. Decisions were made, directions set, outcomes shaped, and tracing it back led to the same variable. Not because you dominated the process, but because you anchored it. You were the steady point, the calm that didn't fracture under pressure, the clarity that didn't need volume to be effective. You didn't ask to be part of it, but the moment required you anyway. And now you're beginning to understand. This was never about one room, one moment, one situation. This is how you move through the world. Environments respond to alignment. Influence emerges when effort steps aside. This isn't a conclusion, it's an unfolding. And it's not finished yet.